I'm going to break down everything we know so far about factions, religions, enemies, and mercenaries in Starfield for you, as there's been quite a lot of exciting and interesting information released since that Starfield Direct presentation back in June. So by the end of this video, you'll be fully up to speed on what all of these in-game mechanics do and why they're worth your time and attention. And let's start with the different types of religions in Starfield first, because I feel that they've been overlooked or thrown in with the factions as the kind of same thing, which I guess you could say they technically are, but the main difference between them both is you can have a member of a specific faction follow a different type of religion in game, which opens up a can of worms when it comes to dialogue and subsequent positive and negative responses from yourself or the NPCs that you speak to throughout the galaxy. But from an overview standpoint, according to Bethesda, Starfield religions are just like the religions in our own world, where there are ideological belief systems within these religions that inform the actions of their followers. And so far we have three very contrasting faiths at play confirmed by the team so far, which, by the way, you will be able to join straight away if you want to by selecting the corresponding trait for that religion in the character creation menu. But the caveat being, you're only restricted to choosing one religion, meaning you can't pick or follow all three religions at one time, otherwise the game is going to implode. Now, the first religion is called the Enlightened Faith, which is Starfield's scientific religious branch who believe in the power of knowledge, new technology, science, and humanism for the far distant future, where they believe humanity plays an even more important role in the universe. Incidentally, it's not yet specified exactly what rewards, benefits, or disadvantages we directly get for joining the Enlightened Faith, but it is stated on the trait menu that we will gain access to a special chest full of items in the House of Enlightened. That is a religious area located in the city planet of New Atlantis. But again, the caveat here being we won't be able to access this Sanctum Universum chest, which is the religious chest that is owned by the opposing religion to the Enlightened, called the Sanctum Universal. And let's talk about them now as our second religion in this game, as they also have their home base, or I should say church, located in the city of New Atlantis as well. But even though Bethesda hasn't given us too much info about them at the moment, we do know they seem to be focused on trade, as many vendors and merchants throughout the galaxy offer discounts if you're part of this Sanctum Universal faith. So perhaps one of the reasons why these two faiths are considered competitors to one another in this game is that one believes in capitalism and the free market and is very economically driven, whilst the other is a bit of a humanitarian-centric faith and scientifically orientated, resulting in a clash of futuristic ideals and beliefs. That said, our third religion is called the Great Serpent, which is shrouded in mystery thus far. But what we do know is that if you do decide to follow the ways of the serpent by picking up the Serpent's Embrace trait here on your character creation screen, you will gain a temporary health and endurance boost if you perform a gravity space jump with your spaceship. But the catch to this benefit being that if you spend too long on a planet, you will not only have this buff removed from your character, but your health and endurance will be lowered until your next gravity jump, with the description highlighting gravity jumping as some sort of in-game addiction, which is a very challenging debuff to have in the game, to say the least, especially at the start, as you're going to need to continually travel gravity jumping from system to system to keep yourself from losing too much health and becoming too vulnerable against adversaries and enemies. It's also not yet specified as well what this snake deity is, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see some sort of basilisk being worshipped on a distant planet somewhere, as alien creatures are something Bethesda is really tapping into here in Starfield. Now, when it comes to factions, there's several major and minor groups that are vying for control and influence throughout the settled systems, with Will Shen, the lead quest designer, confirming that every faction questline that we choose to engage with will play out in a unique way that is very reflective of the in-game choices and decisions that we make in the lead up to and during that faction questline. So what he means is, don't expect to be welcomed with open arms into a law-abiding faction when you've just been pirating your way around the galaxy, making a notorious name for yourself. But that said, what are the major factions that we'll come across in Starfield? Well, Constellation is the group of explorers that we will be joining at the very start of the game. It's unavoidable and is integral to the main narrative storyline. Incidentally, they are one of the last group of space explorers who want to uncover the remaining mysteries of the universe from their home base of New Atlantis on the planet of Jemison. In fact, we see them repeatedly eyeing up this suspected advanced alien technology in multiple preview clips, and it's this tech that we're going to be looking to track down across the galaxy during our playthrough, and presumably we're going to piece it all together like a jigsaw so we can answer the core question that Bethesda is raising in this game, which is what else is out there. So think of Constellation as this foundational grey faction in the settled systems that we're attached to, where we can then choose which specific faction we want to align ourselves with that are separate from Constellation entirely, and that depends on your choice and style of gameplay. So for example, perhaps you want to play as a space police officer by upholding the galactic law and reporting pirates or criminals to the correct authorities. Well, in that case, you may want to focus on the quest line of the United Colonies, who are largely seen as the Space Republic Federation, who have the largest military presence in the settled systems. They see themselves as the ideal government and political force of the future and oversee many smaller factions and sub-colonies throughout the galaxy. But let's say you're not really into the whole law-abiding space citizen thing and you want to play as a bit of a Han Solo type of character. Well then, perhaps the Free Star Collective is the faction for you, as they make up 3 different star systems that are united by their belief of the sanctity of personal freedom and individuality, which is why there's a big creative emphasis on cowboys gunslinging in space with saloons that host a variety of different personalities, as you can see here. And because of this, they just happen to be the other major faction in Starfield that are at odds with the United Colonies, which are the other faction that we just spoke about. In fact, 20 years before the start of this game's storyline, the Free Star Collective and the United Colonies were at war with one another, which was known as the Colony War. This resulted in a bit of a stalemate, and now there's a temporary peace which we find ourselves in, and where I do imagine we'll be the ones who decide if that peace continues or war recommences. And the reason I say that isn't because that's how the storyline goes and you're forced into picking between these 2 juggernaut factions, but that said, I'm sure that will be a possibility if you do want to play that way in the game. But rather, there's this 3rd faction called the Crimson Fleet that are here to mix things up a bit and not make the choice between those 2 main factions such a one-dimensional one. Now, they are identifiable through their use of the Jolly Roger type flag and skull-shaped face masks, who pride themselves on being a nebulous faction of space pirates that maraud themselves throughout the galaxy in search of loot and riches. Now, Emil Pagliaro, the design director, has stated that the Crimson Fleet have established footholds in the Sagan, Cheyenne, Lunara, Nation, and Crick systems, meaning that they cover a lot of ground in this game. And what's particularly interesting about joining this faction, as Emil says, is that you can progress through their whole quest line, earn their trust, and then suddenly betray them by reporting all of their activities back to the United Colonies or Free Star Collective. So you can go undercover as a bad guy, but still be the good guy if you want to be. Now, if you are enjoying the video so far, please do leave a very swift like down below. So thanks very much for your support. And good news, I'm running a Starfield game giveaway. You just need to be a subscriber of the channel to enter, and link is in the pinned comments. So very best of luck to you. Now, what about this funky planet of neon with all these bright lights that have been showcased frequently throughout all the presentations in the last few years? And who actually runs this Las Vegas city in space? Well, there's 2 that do, but let's talk about the Ryzen Industries faction first, which is the mega corporation and arguably the main commercial faction in Starfield that we can choose to join early on in the game, with Will Shen, the lead quest designer, saying that it has one of the best starts of any of the factions in the game. So apply for a job there, he says, and see if you cut the mustard, which sounds very interesting indeed. So if you enjoyed your Corpo playthrough in Cyberpunk, this may be a solid faction for you to align yourself with in Starfield. Now, the second faction that has a stake in Neon is the Xenofresh corporation who is largely responsible for the transformation of the Neon City from a fishing outpost to this Vegas-like pleasure city due to the discovery that the fish on the planet have psychotropic qualities that gets humans really high, essentially. And this substance is called Aurora, that has been banned throughout the settled systems. But as I'm sure you know, when it comes to drugs, that doesn't stop people wanting it. So there will be a lot of smuggling options and credits to be made here if you fancy that type of playthrough. Now, those are the religions and major factions that will be shaping our storyline in Starfield, but that doesn't mean there aren't other minor groups who will also be engaging with us throughout the narrative, such as the Spacers, which seem to be a minority group that Emil Pagliaro describes as incredibly violent, which is no surprise really, because we see a lot of clips of them fighting in combat. And I reckon this faction is best thought of as the general bandits of the game, just like in Fallout 4 and Skyrim, and who will also have their own religious beliefs and faction affiliations. There's also the House of Varun, who are a group of religious zealots that follow the Great Serpent deity we discussed earlier, as well as the Ecliptic mercenaries that are heavily armored thugs that seem to be a private military company that can be hired through affiliation with the major factions. In fact, we already know that we can get a bounty on our head from certain factions if we cause enough of a thorn in their side. And I wouldn't be surprised if these are the guys that are sent out to apprehenders. And I'd really love this to be a mechanic where we can actually hire them or similar factions to then complete missions for us, because we already have confirmation, thanks to Will Shen, that we can have our companions answer dialogue for us when we're talking with other NPCs around the galaxy. And depending upon their skill set, which will result in good or bad outcomes, I reckon hiring a mercenary force to then work alongside our crew could be a great gameplay mechanic in my opinion, but let's just wait for further confirmation on that. Now, if you're also excited for Starfield, do click on this video on your screen right now. It should be on my face actually, where I'm going to break down even more Starfield stuff just like this video, and do consider subscribing if you haven't already, as I'll be covering Starfield from start to finish. It would be great to have you along for the ride. Big thanks to Nika, my co-content creator, for helping me make this video. It's not possible without her. Cheers for stopping by, and as usual, coffee is on me.